Are you someone who has been celebrated for your conscious reasoning and intuitive nature? Have you always been viewed as someone with the answers to the test before the final outcome has been revealed? Creating a strategic advantage by leading a life of strength is something that should be celebrated to the fullest extent. However, harnessing that passion and purpose may take a little tweaking for some people to realize their fullest potential. For lifestyle and wellness coach Dana Shamas, she was once told that her intuitive gifts made her something of an oddball, and it took her some time to realize how truly special her passion and purpose truly was. Believing more strongly now in the courage of her convictions, Shamus now knows that she really does have a defined purpose to share with the rest of us, which is now clearly defined as helping other people tap into the highest levels of themselves from a personal and professional performance standpoint, all in an effort to help them create deeper connections with themselves while also discovering their true worth and identity. In order to cultivate their true worth and realize the dreams they set out for themselves, Shamus has worked in all sectors of the professional arena, from C-suite executives to nonprofits to business owners and entrepreneurs. And one thing is clear: she's fascinated by the behavior of people and how they cultivate prosperity, difference, and belonging in the world today. And she joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you all about intuition this afternoon. Great to see you, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Dana, I know that throughout the course of your life, you've used intuition to your advantage, but when you first started out professionally and in your younger days, you were told that using your intuition gifts might put you at a disadvantage or may cause you to think you're an oddball. So I'm wondering if you could tell me about your journey all about intuition and what makes you so fabulous.
Well, thank you. So I have always, when I was younger, I used to hear, "Oh, you're so smart. How did you know that? How'd you figure that out?" And it really actually took me a long time to figure out that I was really using my intuition. There were times in my life where, it kind of freaked people out a little bit that I would know things that maybe they hadn't told people, or I had picked up on things they didn't realize were obvious. But eventually I began to realize that it was really a skill that I had, that when I was in a meeting or a conversation with somebody, I actually had the ability to pick up on information that wasn't being said. And so when I saw it as a skill and I saw it as something that I could do that other people really didn't have the same kind of access to, I really thought everybody could have access to it. And saw the same things I did. But when I really realized that it was something unique that I did or I had more access to or more understanding of than other people, then I really started to hone that as a skill and really started to lean in to how I could use that in my life. And that led me down all these other paths of healing and coaching and breath work, meditation, and all those other areas of life. So, and now I work with my clients who in very corporate settings, very traditional America corporate settings, access their intuition and get it recognized by all their colleagues and coworkers as like something very important and something that people really want to tap into and access.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Dana, I also know that as a leadership and wellness coach, that you help people really discover their own vision for their own personal life. So tell me about discovering your own life vision and the process that goes into that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, was a long journey, I feel, to understand that for myself. And I started off really on a path that everybody else lined up as successful. You know, I did not come from a wealthy family, and so getting an education, getting a good job, kind of meeting the standard things in life was really important. And yeah, I worked really, really hard and had a lot of success very early in life. And so then, you know, I kind of hit all the markers, right? I got the college education, I got the great job, I was earning good money. But then, you know, I looked around and my father passed away when I was in my early 20s, and I realized life was really short. And I was in a place where people had a lot of money, but maybe they didn't have quite as much happiness and freedom as I desired or thought that life should be about. And so I decided that that was really worth spending a lot of time and effort to figure out. That figuring out, if I could really figure out how to be happy and how to cultivate happiness, the rest would come. And so that led me down kind of all these other roads of looking at how we pursue passion, how we look at our intuition, how we create businesses that align with our values and our principles and create positive impact in the world. And so, you know, I've been super fortunate to meet really amazing people and be in really amazing organizations and have great clients and experiences that that make life beautiful and happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, then I'm fascinated to ask you about the concept of building an inclusive culture. So give me a little bit of context before I allow you to answer the question. So, you know, Dana, I found out at 9 years old that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life without assistance because of the severity of my cerebral palsy. So one of my personal passions in life is working with organizations to help them elevate their understanding of inclusion and infusing folks with disabilities into the workforce. So under that context, what are your definition of defining an inclusive culture and what that means to you?
Well, I think an inclusive culture really allows everybody to shine and allows everybody to express their gifts and their opinions and be valued for their gifts and what they bring to the table. And for me, that really means that the culture of the organization has to be curious and has to honor people's humanity. And I believe that when people do that, they naturally become more inclusive. The dynamic is more accepting, and the ideas and communication is more collaborative, which in my experience is a much more fun and life-enhancing place to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a more general sense, Diana, I'm curious to also ask you, what do you think it means to you to optimize opportunities in life?
I think saying yes when you're called to say yes. So, so often we ask for things in our life, right? We want opportunities, we want things, we call them in. And maybe they don't look exactly like we think they should, or maybe they don't come forward exactly the way we thought they should. And so we question ourselves and we let those opportunities go by. And so I think really taking advantage of the opportunities in your life means really saying yes when those things come forward that you are excited about, that you're passionate about, that you're aligned with, and maybe they're a little scary. Maybe they put you on your edge. Maybe there's a sense of unknown, unsteadiness, unsureness around it. And that's okay. You can still say yes. And I think that's what really taking every opportunity for what it is for you.
Yeah, and Diana, tell me, what do you think it means to discover your own individual superpower in life? And I'd love if you could take me on your own individual journey on how you discovered that for yourself.
Well, I think I'm still discovering it. That's the truth. I think
Fair enough, yeah.
What I learn is the more I lean into it, the more I learn there is, and kind of the more superpowers you can cultivate. So that journey is never ending. But for me, really using my intuition and my gifts of insight and observation has been a long journey in really valuing those things. So for a long time as a yoga teacher, I was able to see things. Even today, the clients that I do teach yoga to, we do it all on Zoom, and they're always amazed at what I can see. And how I can correct what they're doing or modify what they're doing to the level of nuance that I can. And I find that that's true in many different situations, in a corporate environment, in a meeting, in an event, in an energy healing session, is really seeing the nuance of energy that's going on. And so for me, it was really a long time of practicing, and then really having other people reflect back to me, oh, that's really unique. Like, other people don't do that. Other people can't do that. And I was like, really? That's true? And so it really took many years before it really sunk in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diana, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the theory of having diversity of thought, because I really think there's strength in diversity, and that's one of the fastest and most effective ways to grow if you're open to diversity of thought. And I wonder your thoughts there as well.
100%. I think diversity of thought is key in really all aspects of your life. I had in high school, I was a debater, and so I did lots of research.
I can tell that.
I did lots of research all the time, and so what it really taught me is that you really needed all different sources to get information on one particular topic. So as a rule, I tell people to read 3 different books on one particular thing. When I teach yoga philosophy, my students have to buy 3 of the same book with different translations of the same text, because each text is translated differently and each person has a different perspective of what that is, right? And so, the more you get different thought and diversity of perspective, the more you get a fuller picture and a deeper understanding of whatever topic you're talking about. And throughout my life, that has never failed me. It's really to look at all things from different angles and really get a variety of opinions and perspectives and angles on different topics, so that you have a depth and level of understanding and perspective that you just never would have on your own or for one single thought pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to, I'm curious to also ask you about the concept of emotional courage and what it means to you to have emotional courage.
What do you mean by emotional courage?
Just the emotional fortitude, just sort of asking for help when you need it, or really pushing yourself beyond the level of your comfort zone. So under that context, how would you define emotional courage?
So to me, being able to ask for help and being able to accept your emotions and hear the needs of your system is really an act of self-acceptance and self-love. And so the more that you can accept yourself and the more that you can love who you are, the easier and easier emotional courage gets for you. The easier and easier it is to be vulnerable and to ask for help and to reach out and to share your stories, failures and successes, right? That act of sharing all you are comes from a place that you accept and love all of who you are. And that's a beautiful thing, but it does take a lot of courage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dad, I'm also curious to ask you whether you think sensitivity and emotion are interconnected. Do you think there's power in being vulnerable, sensitive, or emotional?
I 100% think there's power in being all three of those. So to me, I look at emotion as energy in motion. And it's really interesting because in Spanish, they don't say, like, the translation isn't, I'm angry, right? Like in English, we say, I'm angry. In Spanish, they say, I'm having anger, right? It's a state of being that ebbs and flows, but isn't a permanent thing of who you are, right? And so emotion is energy in that way. Like, you aren't just one emotion. And so the more that you can understand your emotional state, you understand the energy behind that state, and you understand the energy that is. And that actually makes you more sensitive. You're able to pick up on subtler vibrations and have a deeper understanding of the subtler world. And so, the more you get in touch with your emotions, the more you understand your emotions, the more you are at peace with your emotions, then the easier it is to be at peace with the things that you don't see or you don't control or you can't understand. You're able to deal with them in a different kind of way.
Yeah,
as information.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a leadership and wellness coach, I'm wondering your definition of what it means to be an elite leader, or your definition of elite leadership.
So to me, leadership is really about following your own heart and your own essence and your own gifts. And so I know lots of times we think of leaders externally facing in the world, like of an organization or in a company or in a community. But to me, Every person who has the courage and the strength and the clarity to walk their own path walks as a leader, right? Because they are following their heart, they're following their intuition, they're having the courage to walk their purpose and to live their life that they are meant and designed to live. And that takes leadership, right? Like that takes a level of courage and a level of leadership. And it really gives permission to everybody else to also walk a path that is authentic and true for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wanted to talk to you also about passion and purpose, because I know you went on your own individual journey to discover what your true passion and purpose is in life. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on the importance of people discovering their own individual passion and purpose, and how important that is to move the needle of progress forward for all of us.
I think it's essential. We need people who are passionate. If you're not passionate and you're not following your purpose, the truth is you just kind of walk through life. It isn't expansive, right? Like the way we're designed, the way nature's designed, the way life is designed is to actually have more, to experience more, to share more. And when we do things that we're passionate about, our whole energy lights up, our whole beingness lights up. And what we contribute, the impact that we make in the world is beyond just the thing that we do, right? Like it is expansive and it creates more. And when we do that, the world that we live in changes. The more people that can live from that place of expansion, of purpose, of passion, then think of how much more joy we have in the world. Think of how much more life-enhancing systems we have in the world, where people are creating things that not only are good for them, but good for everybody else, right? Like that changes your entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diane, I know that you've worked with a wide variety of people, from executives to team managers to nonprofit leaders. So I'm curious to ask you about what fascinates you the most about people in general, and what have you learned about the fascinating way that people really operate and take care of their personal and professional business?
Well, one of the things that I find most interesting is that we here in America tend to really delineate between professional and personal life. And my experience is that your personal life is reflected in your profession, and your profession is reflected in your personal life. So with my clients, we never just work on one thing, but whatever we work on is going to affect everything. And so that's the fascinating part that I find, is that like the interconnectedness of life and the interconnectedness of who we are as people is really hard to silo. And the other thing that I find, by and large, is that people are really hard on themselves. Like there is a lot of negative self-talk in people's head, and no matter what level they're at or what kind of organization they work for, that to me, people learning to find and value their own skill set, their own gifts, their own purpose, so that they can let go of that negativity is essential as we move forward.
Yeah, and moving on, I'm curious to ask you about the concept of accountability and how you really define accountability and how you hold yourself personally accountable.
Well, I do have my own coach, so that's also helpful and in keeping myself accountable. But really, I use a lot of reflection. And so in holding others accountable, which is a lot of why people come to me for coaching, and why people do group coaching programs with me is really to have that group accountability, that somebody else is like, oh, did you do that? Did you follow up on that? Did you do the practice that you say you were going to do? Are you doing the things that you know you can do to really thrive at your optimal level? And, if you don't keep yourself accountable, it's really helpful to have others in your life that just reflect back to you. Are you really doing what you know you should be doing? Like, you know these things, you have these tool sets. Are you using them? And that reflection is really important. And so oftentimes, we need others to reflect that back to us until we learn to have a deep practice of self-reflection. And when you have that deep practice of self-reflection, it's a constant process of like, all right, like, where am I off course? What isn't in alignment with what I set out for? Where in the past day, where in the past week have I chosen things that weren't in alignment with my goals, weren't in alignment with my purpose, weren't in alignment with my energy? And maybe how did I not honor myself fully and completely? How did I not honor myself fully and completely? And when you're in a relationship with others, how did I not honor others? Typically, if you're not honoring yourself, you're not honoring others.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diana, I'm curious to also ask you about the concept of hope and prosperity and the opportunity to really maximize life and the role you think hope and prosperity plays in that entire equation.
And how do you define prosperity?
That's a fabulous question in terms of maximizing your level of impact. And, because I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different. So for me, there isn't a definable term of prosperity because it's different. So I'm curious, how do you think hope and prosperity are interconnected?
That's an interesting connection that I've never really thought about before. I would say they're definitely intertwined because hope gives you that expansive quality that there is more available, right? There is more out there. There is more love. There is more joy. There is more impact. There is more fun. There is more life. There is more freedom. It's all in the realm of hope and belief. And that energy and those energies are energies that allow us to step into more. And in whatever way you decide to prosper, if prosper is expansive, prosper is more. So you have to step into those frequencies, into that vibration, into the mindset, into the feeling tone of that hope, of that more, in order to really allow prosperity to come forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And Diana, for you, what's the best part about living life, and how do you maximize your impact on the world every day?
That's a great question. Really, my level of joy is a huge indicator of my level of success. And how I measure, I don't know that I actually measure my impact in the world. I would say I don't actually measure that impact, but I strive to make sure that I interact with clients, people, organizations in a way that allows them to experience more joy and to create more joy in the world. And so when I'm doing those things, I know I'm having a greater impact in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
The biggest legacy I could leave is that everyone that I've touched is having a more joyful life. that people are able to create more things in the world and create more happiness in their own life on a daily basis. If that's how people remembered me, that would be beautiful.
Absolutely. And finally, Diana, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
I have a website, danashamas.com, that has all my information on it. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, so reach out to me any way you'd like.
Fantastic. Well, Dana, I certainly enjoyed our conversation, and from one communicator to another, I really enjoyed your enthusiasm and spark for the art of communication and leadership. So I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon and for being here. It's most appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation.